Hey guys, welcome back to Total Titans Football. It's Fran here, and we'll be kind of unveiling a new series, which would be to looking at the kind of top three transfer questions everyone has for this deadline. I think the big priority for most managers is going to be the question between Jimenez and Bamford. And one of the reasons why this is happening, I think, is because a lot of people are moving into a front three structure where they might have one premium, such as a Ronaldo or a Lukaku, and then have a second player in terms of DCL or maybe Antonio. And I think if you're not going for something like Lukaku, Antonio, and DCL, I think it might be very possible that you have someone like Bamford or Jimenez, and especially due to the fact that there is that kind of reported injury that DCL has been playing with, which is his kind of broken toe. And if he's not able to maybe recuperate in time, I think there is definitely a shout to actually consider between Bamford and Jimenez. Now, with Jimenez, I would say with Wolves, having seen them for the first three game weeks so far, they have looked like a very organized side in terms of how they attack. And to be honest, the defensive end is really has been down on lock for I think Wolves, to be honest. And I think there's a great reason to actually look at Wolves defenders. The opposite can kind of be said for the attackers. I think whilst they've built a lot of chances and to be honest have created potentially the highest amount of shots in the league as well as a team. A lot of the big chances have actually been created by Adama Traore and his ability to run off the shoulder of defenders, and his general kind of, I would say, very unique physical kind of prowess and his ability to beat defenders in that sense. And because of that, I think you have to consider that Jimenez's attacking returns have been diminished. You can't just simply look at Wolves' shots on target and the shots created and say that that is all subject to what Jimenez has created. I would also say on part it's also due to some of the efforts of Trincao as well. And we know that Podence and Neto will come in later in the season, but Neto isn't really a factor right now. With Jimenez, I'd say Hwang Hee-chan is also coming into the side. He was a kind of rotation option in Red Bull Leipzig, but we don't really know exactly whether he will be playing a more prominent role in Wolves. I would say that Jimenez probably will stay within the structure and be the starting striker, but I will say that I think on a confidence level, I think we have seen a bit of a drop off from Jimenez compared to his 1920 season, where he was clearly, Wolves' talismanic player, someone who would score almost every goal for them, would get on the end of every cross. I have seen a slightly more timid version of Jimenez, especially even on set pieces, and that for me kind of takes away from some of the appeal of Jimenez, despite the fact that Wolves has such a fantastic fixture list. On the other hand, when you're looking at Bamford, you're looking at a player who, whilst Leeds have been doing poorly, I think you can say they've done predictably poorly, right? Because the fixture list for Leeds was understandably poor, and the same kind of arguments can be said for Jimenez. The difference, though, is that we still have seen returns from Bamford already. We've seen a goal, even though he kind of wasted some chances versus Burnley, which is basically a hallmark of Leeds last season. Anyways, we did see Bamford miss some easy chances, but also make some ridiculous chances, and also just he has the work rate overall to create those chances and actually finish most of them. For him to be a worthwhile player, even at a 7.9 price, and of course you will enjoy the fact that he did have that kind of price drop. So I think Bamford, for me, is generally the better option because Leeds are still slightly more clinical, in my opinion, than Wolves right now. I think when you actually look at the structure of the players last season, we still saw a template for Bamford to actually score a fantastic season of, I think, 16 goals. And it's same with Harrison and Rafinha, who are consistent contributors, and we saw that last season as well in the Premier League. So I think Bamford is for me the more solid option, even if you're looking at the fact that he has to face Liverpool in game week 4, because the fixture is tough, but ultimately Leeds are still playing at home, and then you get to enjoy Bamford and probably have a bit more safety and security over the fact that he probably will have consistent performances versus weaker sides post game week 4. So I really like Bamford if you're really not opting for someone like DCL, Lukaku, Antonio, or Ronaldo. So for me, both these players are kind of fourth in priority in terms of some of the other forwards possible. Even Kane, of course, comes in terms of priority, although I have already mentioned several times that Spurs are simply not creating enough chances for Kane to really warrant a 12.3 price. But that's how things are with Raul Jimenez and Bamford. My verdict is going to be Bamford. The second question, of course, is whether you completely drop Bruno if you were someone who has Bruno in your team. And as I myself would say, I think Bruno has clearly dropped in terms of priority for me simply due to the Ronaldo transfer. And I think if you have the capacity to take a hit and maybe go to Ronaldo and you still have faith in the fixtures of Man United, I think it's a very easy transfer to make as long as you don't have any kind of glaring issues with your squad. I think simply put, when you look at Bruno and why he's worth 12 million, you have to factor in the penalties from the previous seasons. Bruno was a consistent, 9 to 10 penalty a season scorer, and that factors into possibly 40 to 50 to even 60 points when you factor in bonus points per season. And that kind of getting gutted out of his haul will mean that overall, as a price asset week on week, he's not so interesting. With Ronaldo, I would also say that there's clear signs that he's a fixture-proof player. We've seen it on an international level, on a domestic level, on a Champions League level. He can score in any game, in any fixture, and he will be that type of player where even if the fixture is tough or United aren't building enough chances, he just really needs that one chance to actually finish. Whereas I think with Fernandes, he does benefit from specific games where United overwhelm teams. And for me, with Ronaldo, he will benefit as well in those situations too, but also maybe give you just a little bit more than Bruno does in some of those tougher games and some of those tougher fixtures, which I think is one of the drawbacks of some people looking at Bruno at this point right now. I think if you have Bruno in your team and you're considering taking him out and you have the capacity to do so, or you want to wildcard away from Bruno, I think this is the game week to do it. I know some people want to have an eye test over Ronaldo, but I really don't think it's necessary. This is Cristiano Ronaldo we're talking about, so my verdict is get Cristiano Ronaldo in if you want to straight swap with Bruno. I think the third question that a lot of people will be facing as well is, whether or not they want to drop someone like Trent on their team. I think a lot of people are looking at maybe getting a Chelsea defender, a City defender, or a pairing of the two because, simply put, the Chelsea and City defenders are much cheaper. And in my opinion, I think Liverpool have actually just got through their toughest game in terms of Chelsea. And ultimately, I thought Trent still had good opportunities to actually create chances. And that's exactly why he got bonus points in that game. Now, of course, Chelsea were, of course, affected by the fact that they were playing with 10 men. But there's still a bedrock and a clear basis to say that I think Trent clearly outperforms anyone who is below him in price, with maybe exception to someone like Diaz, to be honest, who is nailed for Man City and has fantastic returns, both in terms of an aerial sense and even the ability to actually provide assists for his teammates, which is, I think, something that differentiates from some of the other Chelsea centre-backs who probably won't be so often getting maybe goals or assists. We see sometimes, of course, an Azpilicueta banger here and there, maybe a great Rudiger assist, but I think Diaz is the more complete piece in that sense, and also someone who's kind of rotation prone. But when you actually look at Trent, the overall kind of body of work in terms of his creation when he drops into the midfield and actually attacks in behind, we saw that kind of assist versus Burnley as an example. His ability also to kind of create through set pieces and direct chances, I don't think anyone in the league really compares. Dean, of course, is someone who takes set pieces, but he does play for a much more inferior team in terms of how many expected clean sheets we have by the end of the season. So I think on that basis, Trent is still someone you should keep in your team. And I think when you're actually looking forwards towards creating wild cards, or maybe looking to maybe move away from Trent, I don't think you can really dismiss the fact that he should be set and forget. And I think my verdict is he remains set and forget. And that's it for now for today's video. I hope you guys enjoy this new series. If you guys have any other kind of looming transfer questions, I'm happy to make a second episode, given the fact that this international break is a much longer break than usual. But thank you guys for watching today.